So, hello. Good morning, everybody. It is great to be here. Welcome to the forum here at All Saints Church. Those of you who are here with us in person, those of you who are participating with us online, it is great to be here. My name is Mike Kinman. I'm the rector here. My pronouns are he, him. And I am really, really sure that I'm not the person that you came here to see today. It is just phenomenal to have Juliana Serrano back here with us. And so I will do my due diligence and I will read the bio as if we don't know it already. Juliana joined the staff of All Saints Church in June of 2010 as the director of the Office for Creative Connections. In her role as connector and convener, she developed many strong relationships with community organizations and grassroots and political leaders in the Pasadena area. For a few years, Juliana also supported All Saints by serving as the point person for all multiculturalism trainings and educational offerings for staff and lay parish leaders. In July 2015, she took on the responsibility of managing All Saints Peace and Justice Ministries and parish-wide efforts, because, like she wasn't doing enough already. In this role, she oversaw the work of 18 separate social justice-focused groups, served on numerous community coalitions, actively engaged in activism and advocacy, and was appointed to several nonprofit boards. Most recently, Juliana was nominated by All Saints Church and appointed by the Pasadena City Council to serve on the first Community Police Oversight Commission. We're going to talk a little about that. She is now the Vice President of Advocacy and Equity at Planned Parenthood, Pasadena and San Gabriel Valley. And she's going to talk a little about that. I won't read that. I'll let you talk about what you do there. But really, what I want to say is, can we welcome Juliana home? So how you doing?
I'm doing well. It feels really good to be back. And to hug everyone, wow. When I think about the time that has passed, I wondered if this was going to be possible. And wow, we're here, we're in it, so it feels really good. I've got a buzz right now, so.
Right, well, great. Well, let's see if we can keep that going. You've had 4 months or so since you left your staff position at All Saints Church. And I'm wondering, you've just been, imagine, just like ridiculously busy with your new job, but I'm wondering if you've had some time to sort of reflect on your time at All Saints and what stands out and where have you seen us change and how did the experience change you?
Well, there's a lot there, and I have taken the time to reflect, and it's just with incredible fondness that I think about the 11 years here. Even just today being in the pew, just a flood of different memories around efforts, around different people, different liturgies that we experienced together. This was an incredibly formative place for me. And, I think so often we give our academic experience, college or our graduate school, all the credit for forming us and who we are in the world. And really, it's in other places, including our places of employment, that can be even more formative. And so, to me, this was the best, graduate program I could have ever been a part of. I didn't walk away with a degree, but it doesn't matter. I gained so much knowledge while here. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about activism. I was able to practice and explore my faith in ways that I hadn't imagined because you may not all know this, but when I started that June of 2010, I was a little nervous about working for a church. I had never intended to work for a church. And I remember at that point in time when I was, discerning whether or not to accept the position, having conversations with my family about what it would mean to work for and within a community of faith, and feeling worried about potentially niching myself in a way that could be detrimental to my career. And, after all of that exploration, I decided to go for it, and it was the best decision I made in my life, and in large part thanks to the fact that this institution, I think, took a risk on me. I was, 30 years old and 31 years old and had accomplished a lot already, but still was pretty new and green to a lot. And, throughout the years, I just was able to really explore my vocation and grow as a person and as a professional person as well.
Yeah, so maybe you could be Dr. Juliana Serrano, PhD, ASC. So
Yes, yes, I like.
well, so I don't know if everyone knows the story of how All Saints Church was involved with you first becoming involved with Planned Parenthood, and how that. Did you wanted to share a little bit about that, because that's another connection that happened.
Yes. So I want to say, I started in June of 2010, and it was about maybe a year or so later that I was at a women's community event. It was one of the Lunches of Compassion, and I was asked to present. And it was there that I met Sherry Bonner, who's the CEO and president of our local affiliate. And she said to me, "You've got to come to our health center in Pasadena and get a tour and get to know what we're offering there." And I said, of course, I'd be happy to. I mean, she was a member of the congregation. I was being invited also by a community leader to come check out this nonprofit organization. But I remember feeling nervous. I had never been in a Planned Parenthood health center before. I had grown up Roman Catholic and was very much indoctrinated, especially in my Catholic school experience, around pro-life arguments, which I had held for a large portion of my life. And though in my adulthood I was beginning to deconstruct that narrative that I had been fed and have my own experiences around sex and sexuality and that with my friends and pregnancies and all of the sort, I was breaking that all down at that time. And so I remember getting this tour of our Pasadena Health Center and just learning so much and asking a million questions of the staff that I was meeting. And then afterwards, we had lunch with one of the education staff members, and I asked even more questions. And what I walked away realizing that day was that I had had the wrong idea about Planned Parenthood this whole time, that this was an incredible organization, and I didn't know what to do with that, right? There was this tension between, again, this old version of me and this new version of me that thought this was amazing. That old version was like, yeah, but, right? And so I'll never forget that I ended up celebrating, we worshiped here. My very good friends from college and I worshiped here for Good Friday. And at that point in time, I had already been asked by Sherry to join the board of directors of Planned Parenthood, and I thought, this is a stretch. Wow, me on the, what? And so worshipped here for Good Friday with my friends, went out to dinner afterwards, and I was discussing with them this conundrum that I felt that I was in. And in that, though, I started sharing with my friends everything that I'd learned at the health center and everything that the health educator told me. And I'll never forget, my friend Teresa turned to me and said, "This sounds like the most life-giving work that you could be a part of." And it just really flipped the script for me in a way that, I know I was saying all those things, but I wasn't really comprehending it. And it was just that simple phrase from Teresa, which I'll never forget. She just mirrored it back to say, everything that you're talking about is about giving people life and giving their people their lives back. And why wouldn't you want to be a part of something like that? And so it was then that I then accepted the invitation to join the board of directors and ended up serving, a term which was a total of 4 years, and then, or is that right? 6 years, that's right. A total of 6 years, and then I took a 1-year break, and then I came back because I couldn't get enough. And then from there, the employment opportunity arose, and so now I'm no longer a board member and a staff member, and it's very different. We can get into that.
Yeah, we'll
too.
get into that.
Yeah.
So that's a really good example of how this experience changed you. How, over the 11 years, how have you seen us change? How have you seen All Saints Church change?
Oh, gosh, and really amazing ways. I mean, I think that this is a community that has really grown in its own faith and its exploration of faith. And I've just seen so much more grace and dare I say, less rigidness, if that's a thing, that has been phenomenal. I've seen people's passion for social justice and activism increase over the years also. And also just the frustration also, which is right and it's fair. And that's for us to sort of grapple with who are we and what can we do in a way that I think feels really natural and healthy, and for us to sort of reconcile that we are, just a body that can do the best that we can do, and that's what we're going to move forward with doing.
Yeah, and so right now you have sort of different perspectives. You still have, you're still just out of 11 years working for a faith-based organization, working for All Saints Church, and now you're working for another nonprofit, and you're watching how faith communities interact in areas of peace and justice, particularly around women's and reproductive health, but not exclusively to that. What are you seeing sort of the present and the future looking like? Where can faith communities have the greatest impact? Maybe perhaps where are we needed where faith communities aren't stepping up just yet?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting question, because I will say that, like, being an insider, right, working within a faith-based organization, that is All Saints, and now being outside of one, the same story still rings true, which is there's incredible mobilizing and organizing power within congregations, within faith-based communities, that doesn't get tapped into nearly as much as it should. And I know, in full transparency, that was one of the challenges that I always had here at All Saints, was like, we all have a heart for this, we're all riled up, and why is it I can't get more people to show up on the streets? Why is it that I can't get more people to harp on our city councils, or to go and participate in lobby days? Given, I know, the passion, the energy that we all feel. And so, that was my challenge here, and that remains, I think, still a challenge from an outside, is to say, how can we as a partner organization be part of the work that organizes and mobilizes community of faith, knowing that there's the values are there, but just getting people trained and equipped to actually put that into action and take it to the streets becomes the hard work.
And so, I want to go with that for a second, because I wonder, well, what is that about? I mean, I think, and I may be attributing this wrong, I think it was Audre Lorde who said the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Is it because we've become too convinced we don't have power? Why is this so hard? Because it's certainly not, lack of intention and lack of passion.
I don't know if it's really that kind of apathy, though I'm sure that's true for some folks, right? I think that oftentimes, and there have been ways that I've done this too in different movement work, I say, well, somebody else is taking care of it. Somebody else is on it. Gosh, my day's so crazy. I've got so much on my plate. I'm already doing the best I can. I can't be stretched any further. So I'm going to leave it up to those people who can do it to do it, and I know they represent me. So it's kind of that more passive experience that I think leads to the challenge, right? And, less about, actually feeling connected and passionate about the work, but it's just feeling like, I don't know if I have time. It really, I only have so much energy, so much hours in a day and a week. Can I really lend myself in more ways? That feels like the pressure. And I think that, COVID definitely added to all of that, where we, I think, hopefully all learn to be a little bit more precious with our time, with our resources, with our energy, so that we were really taking care of ourselves. And so organizing during COVID was incredibly challenging, as all of my peace and justice ministry leaders know. And sort of translating some of that work to a virtual space was very challenging as well.
Yeah. So, okay, I don't want this to turn into like a public live-streamed exit interview.
No.
So, love to talk about the Community Police Oversight Commission, because you actually still officially represent All Saints Church.
Yes.
On that, can you, first of all, give some history of it and talk about your involvement, and maybe sort of like where are we and what's happened so far?
Yeah. So, yes, to confirm just that All Saints Church does continue to remain my sponsoring organization. And as an appointed commissioner, I am going to be serving this community-based organization seat for 1 year with the possible re-election for another year. So I will serve no more than 2 years on this commission, and my hope is to regularly come back and check in with you all about the activities of the commission. You may recall that I was voted in by the City Council in April of this year, and we were sworn in June. We received training in July, August. We had our first meeting at the end of October, and that first meeting was just kind of to go through some logistics. We had our first official meeting with the chair and vice chair. I'm serving as vice chair, with an agenda that we set forth, and we kind of got to some business. So it's been a slow process, and even slower when we think about the movement that has been that of fighting for civilian oversight of the Pasadena Police Department. That predates my involvement. There has been local activism and engagement and that call to action for decades, and it really ramped up in 2013, not too long after the death of Kendrick McDade by the Pasadena Police Department, that a lot of community activists, including myself, began to consider actual oversight models. Like, what is going to be our proposal? We can't just fight for oversight. We need to bring something to the table. And so that journey, which was a very long journey of fighting for an independent police auditor that would work in partnership with a group of community-based members, finally amplified to a place of garnering the appetite of the City Council, because year after year, we asked, we demanded, we urged, and nothing. The Pasadena City Council inevitably would say that the Public Safety Committee was the oversight body for the police department, and we didn't need another body providing oversight, and so no. But when the murder of George Floyd happened, right, this national reckoning that we were all present for, really shifted the conversation in a pretty dramatic and significant way. And it was then that we finally got the ears of all the council members and the mayor, and this appetite became known. And then we had to begin negotiating the details, which was quite messy. There was, some proposals on the table that some of the activists and I were not in support of, and so then we'd have to come back and say, no, it needs to look more like this, and that was a journey to ultimately, in October of 2020, the Pasadena City Council enacted an ordinance that would allow for a Civilian Police Oversight Commission to exist. And so then it was a 6-month or so journey from there to actually select commissioners. And to give more insight about how the commission is structured, it's an 11-member body. There are 3 community-based organization seats, and so those 3 persons represent an organization in Pasadena. They don't have to be employed by the organization, they just need to be affiliated by the organization that was sponsoring them. And so I was granted one of those seats by the council as the All Saints representative. Florence and Nang is a community-based organization, representative also on the part of the NAACP. And a professor who coincidentally works at Fuller Theological Seminary, but is represented by another organization called Links. She occupies that 3rd seat of the community-based organization seats. The other 8 persons are appointees, each from a council member and 1 from the mayor. And so the council members and the mayor followed their typical commission appointment process, which was they could select their appointee however they wanted to. And so some of them this time, for this specific commission, which was highly regarded by many of us, decided to engage in a public process. So Councilmember Tyrone Hampton and Councilmember Jess Rivas, they received applications, and then via a virtual interview process that everyone could witness, interviewed the candidates, and then made their selection, and then the other council members did their selection in private. And those other 8 commissioners serve staggered terms so that we're not all exiting at the same time.
So, what can you really accomplish in a year? And what, so like you said, you had your first agenda, and so like, what are you doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what we can accomplish in a year is a very good question, because I think about that all the time. I really do think that for us as a body, just to get our training wheels off is going to probably take a year, right? We need to learn how to work with each other. We need to learn how to work with the IPA. We have a city staff that is appointed
with the who?
to us. I'm sorry, the Independent Police Auditor,
Thank
or
you.
short, we call it an IPA, not the beer.
It's like, I do lots of work with IPAs. It's great.
No, our auditor. So there's going to be a lot of learning, I think, in that first year for us. What we're tackling right now is, what is our work plan? What is on our docket? What is it that we want to explore together? And trying to figure out also, what is the information that the city staff need to provide us so that we can do a better job? What is that which the police department needs to provide us? And what are those things that the auditor and his investigatory authority can look into for us, and so that we can make some better deliberations? Because ultimately what we're charged with is to make policy recommendations, right? And that is our authority, in as much as that might be any authority. We will be making recommendations on potential policy changes within the department, and our job is to serve as a better liaison between the department and the community. And so we're figuring those two things out. What are those policies we want to start examining so that we can make some recommendations for changes? And how can we work better with the community? For example, we had a very in-depth conversation just last week at our first meeting about the complaint process and what role we might be playing in filtering in and getting complaints to the department, the attention that they need and they deserve in a very timely fashion, because that's one of the challenges I think the department has. So that's what we're grappling with right now.
How can we help?
Oh, stay vigilant, stay informed. So please, be mindful of the news, and as agenda items come up, if something compels you to provide public comment, that is really, 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 really important, as for us as a commission and for city staff and the chief and our auditor to be well aware of what the community is thinking, feeling, and what it is that you all want from the police department, so that we can better do our jobs, again, in providing the recommendations with the authority that we have, and hopefully enact some change.
Great. Okay, I want to get to let you all say things and ask questions and stuff,
Yeah.
but let's talk about your new job at Planned Parenthood
Yes.
at Pasadena and San Gabriel Valley.
Okay.
Like, what is it? How's it going? What are you learning? And then also, how can we continue to be as good a community partner as we can? So.
Yes. Well, I'm learning a lot, holy moly. So after 11 years of being here, obviously the last couple years or few years, I felt very confident in my role, in my skills. Like, I knew what I was doing. Like, I got this. Even with COVID, it's like, no, I know how to do this. We can do this together. Now I am the new kid on the block. And so it's very humbling. It's very, very humbling to be in that position of asking questions all the time, to not know, and to sort of defer to other people, say, okay, what's your insight on this? What's your wisdom? So I'm back in that mode, which has its good days and its bad days, right? But I love the organization, and being an insider is quite illuminating, because it is a behemoth of an organization. I mean, just our own affiliate, it's 170 employees. There are 5 health centers. It's a big operation. And when I have an idea for doing something, it's not like, oh, let's just schedule that on Friday. Right. No, it's like, I got to check in with 4 different people, and the scheduling and all these puzzle pieces to make things happen.
It's even more complicated than All Saints?
Yes!
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? It is. So I'm just getting used to that, right? Stabilizing my sea legs in that. But I will say that the team that I get to work with, which is the public affairs team, is phenomenal. And I love these badass women that I'm working with as part of my team. We're doing lots of laughing and lots of eye rolling and lots of questioning and lots of deep thinking, like all those really good things that you get to do with colleagues. We're already starting to do together, and I feel really positive about that. And also just a phenomenal leadership team that, again, it includes Sherry Bonner, who I know wanted to be here today, but I don't see her. She might be watching online. Hi, Sherry. Just her wisdom, her leadership, and leading the affiliate in a climate that right now is tough for obvious reasons, which maybe we can also talk about, but this is an organization that is constantly under attack in one form or another, and the fact that we as an organization can remain hopeful and joyful and also imaginative and creative and not let any of those challenges impede our dreaming of doing more is really, really wonderful. So to be part of a team, a culture that says, yeah, and we want to be in Glendale, right? Like we know that there are people in that community that need us. We want to show up in that space and expand our services, expand our service area. I mean, it's really quite remarkable to be part of an organization that can do that.
So specifically,
Yeah.
Vice President of Advocacy and Equity.
Yes.
What does that mean? What do you working on?
Yeah. So basically, I'm in charge of, with my team, all of the advocacy work that we do from our 501c3 status, right? So that includes all the things that we do, like the car caravan, the Women's Caravan for Choice that you all maybe participated in, either in person or virtually, right? Those opportunities for us to advocate for the mission and vision of the organization, to do whatever we can to protect and expand abortion rights, because that's key to the provision of healthcare that we offer in our centers. And it also includes me serving as the executive director of our 501c4, which is the organization that is able to get involved in electoral work. And so we are actually active fighters and members of statewide efforts to elect the right people into office, the champions for the mission of the organization for sexual and reproductive health. And we will get involved in policy matters as is relevant, again, to our organization as well, and be able to lobby for that. So that's what I do in that advocacy role, right? And then the equity is all about our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, both within the organization and all of our external facing efforts as well. So making sure that I partner with the departments, including HR, but not limited to HR, around providing those necessary training opportunities, around equity issues for the staff in the organization, and that I'm also working across departments to make sure that all of our external facing work has that equity lens to it as well, making sure that we as an organization are putting our stake in the ground about being a healthcare provider that is an equitable healthcare provider.
And all of that is one job?
Yeah.
like Senior Associate for Peace and Justice and Director of Office of Creative Connections. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So, wow. So just really quickly, and then I want to open things up.
Yeah.
You sort of referenced this briefly. There are some real challenges in the work that you're doing right now. Do you want to talk a little about that? And then specifically, again, how can we be a part of helping Planned Parenthood and the amazing work that you all do?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's we're in a tough situation right now as an organization, as an abortion provider, and as a nation, as we see abortion rights consistently eroded over time. But I will say that 2021 was one of the worst years yet in terms of bans and the chipping away of abortion rights across the nation. And certainly you all were probably privy to what happened in Texas with SB 8. It was sort of the moment that I think, right, in any justice movement, there's a moment that sort of shakes everyone awake, like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? The reality is that there was a lot of other abortion bans and restrictions that were enacted this year, but SB 8 was the most atrocious. It is pure evil. It is highly creative in its manipulation of the law. This ability for civilians to enforce, right? I mean, it's just, and so it got all of our attention, right? And appropriately so. We have another big case that is on the docket, and so beginning December 1st, the Dobbs case is going to be significant also and will inevitably impact the Supreme Court in their deliberation around the constitutionality of Roe. And so what we are sort of facing, to be very clear, transparent, honest, is a possible overturn of Roe v. Wade, which would mean that the person's constitutional right to access abortion would be taken away. And what that means is if that were to happen, 26 states in the nation would have flat out, bans or significant enough restrictions that essentially it would be a ban on abortion, in function. And a state like California, which remains really, strong on its sexual reproductive health care provision and its stance on abortion rights, would then be in a position of having to serve a lot of out-of-state patients, and we want to be able to serve those out-of-state patients. And it's terrifying. Guttmacher Institute came out just about 2 weeks ago with some data that said that the state of California could see an estimated 3,000% increase in patients coming into our state for abortion access.
And those are just the ones who can afford to travel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, the impact is significant, and I think what you're referring to, Mike, is then think about all of these low-income persons, these persons of color, who can't get in a car, who can't get on a plane and go to another state to access the abortion that they need. They may be pursuing their own means to terminate their pregnancy, to end their pregnancy, or having to move forward with an unintended pregnancy, right? And so, it's just a really unfortunate situation, and we have to be really honest with ourselves, because what this does is it keeps low-income persons poor, and it continues to marginalize and oppress people of color and transgender people when they are denied the health care that they deserve.
Well, and that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the intention. So,
Yeah.
we can't vote out a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
What can we do?
Yeah, I know that's always the challenge when it comes to anything SCOTUS related, right?
Yeah.
Is, we can't lobby them. We can't, show up to their building
Right.
and,
Well, we can,
protest. I mean,
yeah.
we can and
Yeah,
we do,
but- right.
right? We absolutely do. But it's a little bit more challenging. And so what we can do is ensure that our state, the state of California, remains a state that fights for reproductive freedom, that ensures that abortion rights and access are entitled to all, not just Californians, but anybody coming into our state. So there's lots of advocacy work that we can and will be doing, and I'll be inviting you all into this work come the new year, because we need to be building this infrastructure up in our state to make sure that abortion providers have everything that they need in order to provide abortion to the people that are coming our way. We need to make sure that abortion funds, these are specific organizations that support people financial and practical needs around garnering their abortion. So if, Deborah contacts an organization like Access and says, I need support paying for my abortion and I need a bus ticket. That's all I really need. There are these funds out there that provide that kind of financial support and assistance. We need to make sure that we're supporting these organizations, inundating them with the funding that from private persons like you, and also our state government, I think, plays a role in that. So we need to make sure that at that state level, we've got really strong policies in place and budget figures in place that support the work that's ahead of us.
I mean, God forbid things go into the worst possible scenario, but I can see places where we've got, again, you said 3,000%, which just blows me away.
Yeah.
People coming in will need places to stay.
Yes.
They will need friendly
Yes.
people to support
Yes.
them, to walk with them. And maybe that's something that if that happens that we can help provide.
That's absolutely right. And there are organizations, we're going to be very mindful of not wanting to create anything new. There are organizations that are already experts at doing this. And so how do we support them? How do we amplify that which they're already doing and doing so well, and providing, again, that practical support? Because you're absolutely right. There are programs out there that can train you all as volunteers. If you have a back house that you're willing to have a guest in for a couple of days, if you are willing to pick up somebody at the airport and drive them to a health center to seek their abortion, those are real practical ways you can really show up for folks who are seeking their abortion in our local communities. I mean, Mike, I heard a story not too long ago about one of our patients coming into our Pasadena Health Center who came in from out of state and slept in her car, right, the night prior to her appointment.
Well, and then after, I mean, this is an invasive medical procedure. That you have recovery time from this.
Well, it's not.
and yeah.
It's really not as evasive.
Okay.
I mean, right.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the different kinds of abortion
Right.
procedures, there is medication abortion,
Right.
which is really great for lots of patients. You take a series of 2 pills, and you terminate the pregnancy in the comfort of your own home. Sometimes you need a follow-up visit for that, but typically it's a pretty smooth process that it doesn't involve anything like a surgical procedure of
Right.
any sort. Then there is the kind of
Right.
surgical
Right.
abortion that you mentioned, but it's a very quick procedure.
Right.
It's very low risk. There is some recovery time, but they spend that time in our health centers. And an ideal patient, right? There's always some complications, but very, very rare. But you get to go home and kind of sleep off the rest of the day, and you're probably feeling a lot better by the next day.
But you don't want to
right?
be doing that in your car.
No, you wouldn't want to do
Right.
that in your car. Absolutely
Right.
not. You would want to be able to do that in the comfort and the safety of your own home. And so we want to make sure to be able to, provide that to people who are coming our way and give them the best abortion experience that they can have and really honor them and their decision, right?
Absolutely.
If you are, deciding to have an abortion, what we want to do is be part of that network, part of that system of support that says, we respect your decision, we honor your decision, we're here to help you through your decision and give you the best quality care that you deserve.
Right, thank you. So I want to give a chance for people to ask a question, but also just sort of, briefly, we're going to try to get as many folks as we can. Oh, thanks, Melissa. To just, and try to keep it short so we can get as many people as possible. Anything to sort of add or say to Juliana or, yeah.
Juliana, my question is, will there be some legislative changes that we could foster that grant physicians and other healthcare providers the right to serve patients from other states?
Yes, so there's a team of legal experts that are way more brilliant than I am that are exploring all of those possibilities from a legal perspective, right? But I think part of what you are referencing too, Deborah, is about the potential need to expand the workforce, right? So what we also need to make sure, if the volume's going to increase that much, how do we also ensure we have enough providers out there to actually provide the services that are coming in our state? It's probably not what we have right now to meet that demand, right? So needing to work and encourage folks that are pursuing this particular field to ensure that we're funneling them in the organization and that we give providers all the legal protections that they need in order to, again, do the best job they can to serve patients, whether they are from California or from another state.
Thank you. John and then Nancy.
Thank you for coming back.
Yes, my pleasure.
My mind works in a very strange way, so this is going to sound a little funny. Why not reorganize Planned Parenthood as a religion and have people come in, become members of the Church of Planned Parenthood, and you will have no problem with the Supreme Court?
That's a great suggestion. I like it. I'm going to have to chew on it a little bit more, though.
That's working the system there, John. That's working the system. Nancy, go ahead.
Juliana, with your background as a Catholic who was convinced to make this big transition, are you able to use that in publicity or in lobbying?
That's a really great question. I will say that I have as a board member. I haven't been compelled to do that yet as a staff person, but so much of our justice work, right, is deeply, deeply personal, and sharing our stories with each other as we are organizing and developing the work, and also as we, lobby elected officials is incredibly impactful. And so I have had that experience of telling folks before, hey, I was one of the millions of Americans who had Planned Parenthood misunderstood. I'm one of the millions of Americans who deeply thought that the pro-life movement was the right movement, right? And I think differently now. And I see it and I understand it very differently now. And being able to share that with folks has often opened opportunities for them to say, that's true for me too. I have a similar story, I have a similar background, and then we can, find our commonalities and our shared experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Melissa, where are we going next? Over here.
Yeah. Good morning, and it's so good to see you.
Is that Pat?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's Pat Coulter. Okay,
I
great.
wish we weren't masked, because one of the things I miss about you not being here on Sundays and during the week is your beautiful, bright smile.
Thank you.
So it's good to see you.
Good to
And
see you.
congratulations
Thank
on
you.
all fronts, doing just tremendous work. Regarding the police oversight,
Yes.
I was troubled when I learned that one-year terms. I just felt immediately that doesn't even make sense for anything that you're doing. Even if it's a task force, you need a little more time. Have you all had an opportunity or given thought to your interactions with the community? Do you have any feedback from the community about, either the structure of it or what some of your goals and plans are for getting some work done, particularly around force, the use of force?
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. And I just want to reiterate that these staggered terms for all the commissioners, they are set forth by the ordinance, which has been approved by the council. And so to make any changes to that would require that it be taken up by the council again and for another vote. So we don't have any power or authority in that. It is going to be challenging to get anything significant done in 1 year, and honestly, even 2 years, right? Because again, I think the first year is almost a wash and just sort of learning the ground. So it's going to be challenging, and I feel like as a whole, though, we're a really strong body. There's really lots of wise people that are serving on the commission. I've been very impressed already by some of my fellow commissioners, because I will confess that at least for one of my colleagues and I, Flo, and I'll name her specifically because we've worked together on police issues over the past 7-8 years. And so I know her very well. There's lots of trust. I sort of have a sense of what she's thinking and feeling, and she has that for me, even though we don't always agree all the time, right? We have our differences of opinion too. But we thought of ourselves as like, okay, we're probably over here, but we don't know where the other 9 are going to be. And as we're engaging in discussion, I'm able, I should say, to sort of get a sense of where other folks may be at. I'm feeling hopeful and optimistic about that when we think about reform measures and recommendations for changes in policy. Use of force, though, you're, I think, absolutely right. That's going to be a key focus for ourselves. And, I even just had a conversation the other day with the chair about how I think we need to be very clear and transparent that while an officer-involved shooting is technically a use of force, that I think that it's going to be really helpful for the conversation as the commission to really split those two issues apart, and for us to be talking about uses of force that include things like baton and taser use, and then separate out when an officer actually engages in his or her firearm and deploys that on a person, ultimately maybe resulting in that person's death. Those feel like different topics for us to tackle, and so might we consider doing that, because we don't want those shootings to kind of just get lost in that bigger umbrella, because of what we know our current climate is in Pasadena around officer-involved shootings, and that in the nation. It sort of deserves its own conversation. So we're going to be figuring those things out together as a body.
Thank you. Time for 1 or 2, and then I'm going to bring Lorraine up here for a second. Where are we next, Melissa? Over here?
Oh,
Thanks.
Hi there, Juliana. It's China and Kai.
Hi, oh my goodness, it's good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you for all your support while you were here at All Saints with my family.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask a question, more or less. Mike was mentioning how can All Saints support Planned Parenthood. My question are, what are the efforts of the other faith-based organizations, or the engagement rather, and also with the electeds and the neighborhood councils? I did the car caravan, and I just wanted to ensure that you guys are getting as much support as you can, because you so desperately need it.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, there's always an opportunity for more and more people to get engaged in the work, and that can be from, being engaged in the work in terms of your dollar donation, and every single dollar matters to the work that we do, to potentially volunteering, and there's some real safe ways to volunteer for the organization, including going to our health centers and chalking up the sidewalk and the entranceways so that both patients and staff feel loved and supported as they're showing up in the space, right? That's something you can do. There's going to be, as we start the next legislative session, lots of policy proposals that we are going to want to be backing, and we are going to be wanting constituents of our assembly members and senators to be supporting. There's also the work here in the city of Pasadena, and I probably should have mentioned this early, but our conversation is just quickly coming to an end. I mentioned the importance of continuing to protect and also to expand abortion rights in the state of California. There's work that local municipalities can do to do that also. And one of the things that we're wanting is the city of Pasadena to make a statement to say, we are a city of reproductive freedom. We welcome all people coming into our community to access the sexual and reproductive health care that they need and want, including but not limited to abortion, right? We need to make that statement. We are gonna get more out-of-state patients coming into Pasadena. We wanna say, we love you, we respect you, we honor your decision, we support you, right? And so what do we need? We need the city council and the mayor to pass this resolution, which has not moved. So that's a point of activism also, right, for us to all engage with. But there's always ways in which, in particular, communities of faith can be part of this work, wearing that hat as a person of faith, and just as a human being, to stand with people and say, again, I support you in getting the health care that you need.
Yeah, thank you. Loren, we have just a couple presentations for you, and to give thanks. And here, Loren, I'm going to...
Oh, Mike?
This
Mike.
is Loren Young, who is our... Yes.
I had one more question. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Okay. One quick question.
Oh, it's like the voice of God. It's Monique. Sure, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes,
Hi, Juliana.
Hey.
Hi, Juliana.
Sure.
Good to see you. I had a quick question. So I work in higher ed, and a lot of our students who are grad students are in this area for a long time, and they get really involved in activism, showing up at city council meetings, and they really want to galvanize. And when they get together, they can affect change. And so I'm wondering, this is a group of folks who don't have a lot of financial resources, but in terms of police oversight, it's a passion that they have, equity in policing. What are ways that young folks can get involved in the movement or in the work?
Great question.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting question because I want to note, too, that there are different movements, almost in a way, right? And I want to be transparent that there is the abolition movement when it comes to policing, which is absolutely about, it's not about reform, right? It's about deconstructing the current model and creating something new, right? I want to be clear that the oversight work is not about abolition. We're acknowledging that there's a system, and we're trying to take measures to reform the system from within the system. And that's incredibly challenging. Some folks would argue it's completely ineffective and not worth the time and the effort. I feel a little bit differently about that, and want to be part of this movement work. So I would say for anyone that any of these students feeling that which they feel, and share that feeling with me around the possibility of reform and changing policies within, to get yourself educated and to really get a sense of what policies are in place. That includes, like, the Pasadena Police Department policy is available on the website. Take a look at it. Take a look and read through some of these things like use of force policy and ask yourself, is this the policy that I want my police department enacting, right? Is that how I want my police department engaging with the community? So exploring that for oneself, exploring also state laws, and then I would say seeking out resources, and a big one that's been part of my formation is the National Association of Civilian Oversight and Law Enforcement. It's called NACOL. They have all kinds of online workshops. They post resources on their webpage, and it's a really great, I mean, when I knew nothing about oversight, that's where I went and started to educate and inform myself. And from there, then you start listening to the news a little bit differently. You start showing up at city council members a little bit different, or at meetings a little bit differently. And you are able to advocate for policies in a much more informed way.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, if you're for, because like, I'm for abolition. And if you're for abolition, if you're for reform, don't fight each other. You're after the same thing. You're after a more just society. Support each other. We're all trying to get to the same thing. Don't waste your energy fighting. You know, it's like, I want to help, you know, the Police Oversight Commission every way that I can. And I will also continue to work for myself for just tearing the whole thing down and building something new. And it just is like, but do not spend your energy fighting each other. You know, support each other, and let's work for justice together. And speaking of someone who works for justice together, Loren Young is the chair of our Vestry Peace and Justice Committee, and you have a presentation for Juliana.
So I can't tell you how much I miss you personally and how much the committee misses you. You kept it running so smoothly, and you did so much to support all our ministries. And we were kind of flailing around, and I've been leaning on Mike a lot because you're gone, and we miss you so much. So we have just a little card here where everyone wrote some messages, but we also wanted to get you something, and I thought, well, shoes, but maybe you probably have too many. So we've taken up a collection, and as soon as I get the check from the church, we're making a donation to Learning Works in your name.
Oh, beautiful.
Because I know that's
Thank
good
you.
support.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we also wanted to have something that you could enjoy. And so we were thinking, well, what can we get you that on a regular basis would make you remember and think fondly of us? And so... It is a cappuccino machine, an espresso machine. Make your own lattes. So enjoy. You bet. And I'll help you carry that to your car later. Don't worry about that. Can we give Juliana Serrano a hand, an appreciation?